When I started my career in documentary filmmaking, I admired those thriving in the industry. I was right where you are, dreaming big and scared of stumbling. Years later, I went from distributing my very first documentary to filming in over 35 countries. And now, this podcast is where we share skills, stories, and lessons with filmmakers, including those who won Oscars and Emmys, to help each other grow and create impactful documentaries. If you are a documentary filmmaker like me, you find yourself filming a lot of interviews, and that's cool. I mean, interviews are the backbone of documentaries and produce the main narrative of a story. And in today's episode, Laura Corciulanin, which is a design anthropologist, is gonna help us understand how to get the best out of the interviews, how to interact with our subject, and much more. Now, how do you handle interviews with subject that have hard time to open up? To find the answer to these specific questions, go on howwefilm.com and access the exclusive content. It's free. You just need to sign up. Also, if you have any questions regarding pre-production, production, post-production, distribution, whatever, you name it, go on howwefilm.com. I have a specific form for you. I'll create a video with the answer and post it on YouTube, Spotify, and all the other platforms. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome to another episode of How We Film. Today is a special episode. I have with me not only a friend, but somebody that helped me in my career as a documentary filmmaking. And when it comes to documentary filmmaking, I don't think there is enough talk about the aspect of psychology and anthropology in interviewing people. So today with me, I have a design anthropologist. Her name is Laura Corciulanin. Laura, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be again here with you and to do an interview to me this time. So
I know. We've been working a lot on different interviews, subject matters. How do we interact with different subject? How do we deal with them? And Laura, the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is exactly as I said in the introduction, is because I don't think there is enough emphasis for filmmakers on the anthropological aspect of storytelling, when you produce a story, when you produce a documentary. But before we jump into, like anthropology and your work and how you can help people like me, in the work that I do, especially when it comes to interview, I would like to ask you a little bit about, can you tell me real quick, like how would you sum up, what you do, and maybe tell me a little bit about you so that people that listen can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I would say that's the hardest question to kick off, especially because my career path changed so much. But I would briefly introduce myself. I'm design anthropologist, trained as anthropologist and designer, combining both fields within my work and mainly in sustainability consulting. Mm-hmm. I'm a water steward. My main passion right now is water protection. And I'm a founder of Give a Shit, which is an innovation agency focused on water and sanitation.
Oh, that's cool. All right. And so, Laura, I think we could jump right into it. I would like for you to give me, let's start from the very basic, okay? Because otherwise, I guess we're going to miss some steps and then it's not going to be clear. Like, how would you explain, like very shortly, like what is anthropology? Somebody's listening to this, right? They have no idea. Yeah. What do you do as a design anthropologist? What is the, the science of anthropology? What is it?
I love that you're kicking off with this, especially because that's a true question for humanity and for us as an anthropologist to answer. So first of all, anthropologist, I would say there is a lot of demystification needed because as anthropologists, we study humans, anthropos, human behavior, human relationship, kinships. But most of the time, people understand anthropologist as someone who is studying people in remote areas, indigenous tribes, something out there, no? Uh-huh. And we forget that being an anthropologist, it's truly studying human behavior in certain social, cultural, specific environments, be it within the city landscape, in my case, people experiencing their toilet experience or their water relationships and so on. So anything that relates to people humanity, society as such, is possibly and probably could be related to the work on an anthropologist.
That's exactly what I was looking for. So your job also requires for you to go and actually do research, and usually researching means to actually, interview a lot of people. If you're doing a research on, I don't know, a specific part of Europe where there is a specific culture and there is a specific tradition over food and how that, I don't know, like let's start with the very basic of that approach. For example, if you have to go and do a research on a tradition, for example, what are the things that you look for, and then how do you go and interview these people? Like, it's a very general question, but I would say if you go into like, maybe you can mention, like, one of your experience or something that you did in the past, a research that you've done, just so that we have a practical example of how it works.
What do we do? So one thing I didn't mention in defining it is that the main differentiating factor from other research is ethnography. What does it mean to do ethnography? It's to do like field work, participatory observation, where the reality of a person experiencing the situation is happening. So I will start with toilet design, with toilets, with the taboo around sanitation and our daily journeys to our bathrooms. So that's my long year research. I made a master degree around that, and also 6 years of my PhD research. And how did I research this, and how I interviewed these people, and what is the main purpose of all this, is to understand what are the main challenges that we are still using toilets which are using drinkable water in flushing of toilets. So in me understanding toilet design as a designer on the other side,
Yeah.
I needed to understand who is designing toilets, who is using toilets, the way they're being used, and the way people are relating to this. Later on, of course, I immediately understood taboo places. So when I start to do this kind of research, of course, how do you research and question people around their daily
Yeah.
take journey on such an intimate private place?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
So the main thing is observation, because as an anthropologist, but also as a person, being there observing this relationship between an object and person's experiences, I needed to have a lot of patience in observing first public toilets. So my journey started with public toilets. So we would literally be in public spaces, public toilets, and see how people act in public toilets. So before asking anything, I would prepare myself, set up, which is no setup if we speak I would say in a documentary filmmaking scenario, but a real life setup, an environment when things happen, where people literally go to toilet. How do they choose the toilet they go? Do they flush water after they use it? What happens? What can I perceive without questioning things? So in saying this, participatory observation was a kickoff of everything. Based on participatory observation, observing the real life scenario, I would build up questions and choose participants that they will be willing to participate in interview, and not just willing, that I thought that they will be the right fit for what I was needing. All of us use toilets, so everyone could be a perfect, if we are lucky enough and we have one, of course. And that's how I started with these interviews. I don't know exactly I'm answering your question, but to say the setup of scenario.
No, I think actually you touched something very important, which is observing before you actually go and ask questions, which I love.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
you will go and just observe, and based on, let's say, your interpretation of what was happening over there, then you will come up with an idea, right? And then
exactly.
And that will be an information that you would use on the questions that you would ask people. So I think that already is a piece of information that,
Yes.
for me personally, can be really useful if I'm doing, like
Yes.
if I want to start an interview. I think that when we were together, there was a dynamic for me that was interesting, because I realized that as professionals, we both go and interview people, but for different reason, right? For you is to understand something, which also is somehow it gives an answer to who we are as humans. And I think that documentarian also do that, but they do it differently. They do it through a story, right? So a story somehow tells us who we are as people. And and I've always been fascinated with your work and even your approach, especially regarding interview. And I would like to maybe go a little bit more deeper on exactly that, right? Basically, the interview. How do you manage the interview? So, like, let's start from the very basic when it comes to interview. What would you say, in your opinion, are the fundamental principles of conducting a good interview?
Okay. Great and important baseline for everyone dealing with interviews is to, first of all, as I said, prepare the scenario, understand the scenario where you will be operating in and where you will be doing the interview. So the space and place where the person or circumstances are located in, it's essential for you to understand to guide good interview. Why? Because if you're doing an interview, like I said, especially in around taboo topics,
Laura,
questions that they are.
sorry if I interrupted. When you say
Yes.
where you set up the interview, you mean the locations where you actually do the interview?
Yeah.
Okay,
Location,
okay, okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, different
No,
term. The same thing, same thing.
exactly.
Okay, so for a
Terminology.
documentary
Very
filmmaker
good.
will be where you choose the locations where you're going to do the interview, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. You choose the location. When you choose the location, there are many things we should be aware of. First of all, if you're like, oh, let's meet in a cafe place, maybe that's a nice place to talk because it's public, we don't know each other, so let's just catch up. It's not about just the technicals, about the noise and what you filmmakers probably think of that I'm not aware of, but I'm
Yeah.
speaking from an anthropological perspective. You're taking person out of its natural environment to talk some topic. Imagine in the space of toilets, that they're like you're sitting in a restaurant talking toilets, which doesn't make any sense. If you want to talk toilets or bathroom space, probably you would want to see how these people feel meantime they are in a bathroom space. Of
Yeah.
course, it's a very delicate, intimate, taboo topic, but choosing the place, location where you will be doing it, it will determine everything about the experience, and quality of interview, how it will be conducted, and mainly how it will be actually telling the storyline that you will be presenting. What defines a good interview? It's first and for the most creating a relationship with the person that you will be interviewing. And when I said before relationship location, it's because relationship will be established probably already before through your phone call, through your online meeting, through your whatever kind of communication you will have. But location will be the place where you will meet this person and establish also personal intimate relationship. So location is number one. Second, trust and personal intimate relationship. How do you create? It's so easy to say we need to trust. We have empathy for other people. This is all like this
Yeah,
trendy
yeah,
soft skills
yeah.
that you
Even
can
on
read
social
them
media, you
online.
see a lot of
Yeah.
yeah.
Everyone knows how to do it, of course. It's very easy, not true at all. Because first of all, you need to feel safe in the first space. You need to be comfortable with the work you will be doing. If you come there all nervous, sitting in front of people with your papers and like, what shall I ask? How do we do this? The person will freak out before you because you are already freaking out. Of course, the person is like, it's a ping pong, so it's like, what is
Yeah.
happening? Person will feel like a criminal standing in front of like a court answering questions. So you want to choose a location and create a space that the person will feel comfortable, that the person will feel natural to talk about the topic you want to talk about. Maybe in their home, maybe in the environment where situation took place, maybe in the environment which can inspire or aspire idea or memory or anything. So
Got it.
this is already pre-definitions that you can plan well, that can support you to a certain extent. Then there are things that you cannot plan, and they really depend on you as an interviewer, in this case as a filmmaker. As I said, you need to feel self trust and self esteem to do the interview. But on the other side, you should be to a certain extent knowledgeable about the topic. And if you don't know anything about the topic, and if you don't have any experiences around this, it's also very important that you prepare. I don't know if you will be studying filming something in Ethiopia and you don't know anything about that place. Of course it's very important you have some social cultural background, that you study some percentage of what is happening in that environment, that the people can relate to you, because you will be bringing questions that they are also social culturally contextually relevant. So this is like location, space, and then the trust-based relationship, which depends on how much you know this, how much you prepare the environment, the container, and of course the questions which are relevant. And then the trust goes beyond something what you say. The trust really goes in first place, what do you say? Meantime, you don't say anything. Meantime, you deeply listen. Meantime, you nourish this heartfelt approach of your, like, how do you mimic things? How do you really listen? Are you there to just listen, to follow up on your questions and go through your list, or you're really there to be there for person and listen what he, she, it has to say? And
Yeah.
that's the baseline of trust relationship build up.
Have you seen in your experience there are specific techniques that can be helpful in order to build trust with people?
I know we would say they're techniques. I don't like to call them techniques, okay? Because
Because we're
it's a
talking
bit
about
of
people. We're talking about
exactly. It's
people.
like
You don't
that's
use. That's
technical,
true.
and that
That's true. It's
that
true.
that
No, you're right.
from.
You're right. You're right. Like,
But
but
I
you
do.
got
But
my
you're right.
you got my point.
Yeah,
You got my point. But
yeah,
it's like, usually I always think in terms of love.
yeah.
Like for me, it's important to love the people I have in front of me. The filmmaking
Yes,
is just a platform to love people. And so
yes.
I've
Beautiful.
I've learned over the years that, approaching people with love, not because you want to judge them, but actually love them. If they really feel loved, where you care about them, no matter what's going to happen with their interview or
Yes.
whatever, the outcome is always really, really beautiful. So to me, let's say my
Yeah.
technique, let's put it this way,
Yeah.
it's like I want to love them, right? But are there any other ways or things that you've
Yes.
seen that that have been
Yes.
helpful that help you,
Absolutely.
to build that trust?
Yeah, yeah. I love your love story relationship with your informants in anthropology. We call them informants, people that you interview. I would say a basic, the most important principle is really non-judgment, because about people you will be talking to and interviewing, it's not necessarily that in the first instant you will so much like them that you will be, like you say, falling in love with them and wanting to really spend
Yes,
hours with them.
yes,
That's not
yes.
given. That's not given. And let's be real. But the thing is, of bringing no judgment, no discrimination policy rule to the forefront, it's baseline. And when I say that, I really mean it in the way, doesn't matter if the person on the other side that you're talking to, he's a criminal, or he made something very much out of the ethical, let's say, agreements that you follow.
Yeah.
It is a baseline that you come there as an observant, as an empath, to open your heart, to hold the space. I tell it when we do interviews, we are holding the space. We are facilitators of space holding for people to reveal their truth, their beauty, their love, their depths, their emotions. So the non-judgment, that we don't judge what comes up. Oh, that person is weird. That people is shy. That people doesn't
Yeah.
want to talk. That person doesn't. Yeah, but that's our personal judgment. There is nothing what that or he or she or whoever is.
Yeah.
It's about you creating a setting, like, and you said it so beautifully, where the love and the story can flow freely, without judgment, without preconceptions, without also not having, how I say, projections. Stop doing your projections, what the interview should be about, what the answers should be about, where the story should be taking you. That's one of the first mistakes that everyone who is there to do, not everyone, but in general, we do mainly mistakes. When I was starting to work with designers, we just want outcomes, we just want answers. But that's wrong. We want to hear the story. And that's a true story happens when we deeply listen, and not when we are already objectifying what the outcome should be. And I want to have that, because my movie will be about that.
Yeah, and I have to say, well, we worked together on a specific project, and I remember that I came up with my list of questions, and you said, "Well, I think that you should be a little bit more open-ended with your questions. You should not assume that this is their story, right?" And I realized I knew that in the back of my mind, but I guess I was confronted at that time that we were together. And I mentioned this specific example because I remember that then after our work together, I asked one open-ended question about a specific topic, which was providence, and like the guy just shared like for 30 minutes he didn't stop. He told me his whole story about a very difficult situation where his daughter was about to die, right? And I remember if it wasn't for that approach, I don't think I would have gone that deep and also allow the person to share, what he wanted to do about that. I think as a storyteller, we do have a specific story in mind. We do have a script. And so sometimes we easily jump on the other side of the line where we want to control everything instead of actually leaving some breathing room, right, in order to tell the story. And so that's just to confirm that what you're saying, like, the non-judgmental aspect, like, but I think also going there, not assuming that the story, right, to allow, the other person to to talk about more freely on that specific topic
Beautiful.
or on that story, right, that he has. And sorry, I interrupted you. I don't know if you wanted to finish that thought or
You didn't interrupted me, but you're giving me a lot of hints on something important, I believe, for filmmakers to share. Assumptions are killers. And they kill the flow on empathy, and they kill the flow on really receiving the truth of the storyline. The script is important, yes. Of course, you want to make it right. You want to make a storyline which will make sense. So you don't want to just fill up some stories that they are not conducting anywhere.
Yeah.
So because of this, in anthropology, I wouldn't say in anthropology, let's be clear, not in anthropology in general, but the way I work, what really works for me in my interviews, in my work, I worked with clients from companies, private, public sector, communities, different stakeholders. In this setting, when I do interviews, for me, the baseline is to have goals and objectives defined. What I want to have as an outcome from this interview, what I really want to what I want to know from this person, not what I want to receive exactly, but what do I need to know from this person? If he is a farmer, I want to know, so how is he producing this food at the end? What does he do? If I'm talking to a restaurant, my question won't be on production of food. It will be on consumption. How are they serving this food? Who is actually ordering what kind of food? So and then for the ones who are consuming the food, I want to know, what is your experience eating that amazing meal which was grown by organic farmer there out? So these are very different perspectives. So understanding well the profile, but then objective definition, a goal, where are you going with this interview? It will always bring you back to your script. But don't, in this script, this is why you said open-ended questions. I call it semi-structured interviews. I would always put 3 questions. You can have broad list of questions, but have 3 main guideline questions, which are which are defined by your objectives. So define your objectives clear. What is the outcome? What I want to reach with this interview?
Laura,
and then with the go. Of course.
No, sorry, I want to interrupt because, do you think that you could give me an example of that, like the one of the restaurants, for example?
Okay, so let's follow up on the food, on the restaurants. So if you are researching, I don't know, the food consumption, you want to understand, and then you're talking to someone in the restaurant and you want to know who is ordering what. One of the objectives would be what kind of profile people order, I don't know, vegetarian meals,
Okay.
By what did why do they order that kind of meals? What this restaurant owner thinks, why do they order that meals? That could be your 2 objectives. No objective could be and then the main questions, which will be defined by your objectives, and objectives would be outcomes. What do you want to know? So it's very hard to think of this imaginary project, but okay, let's think that the objective would be to know how many people, or what is the percentage of people really consuming vegetarian food in
Yeah.
restaurants. And that's your objective. That's the only thing what you want to know. All the rest is a story that they will tell you. So within this storyline, you will have maybe two guiding questions, and all the rest you will leave them to talk with you. So interview, very important thing that what want to mention. It's not about I ask you and you
You
answer,
answer.
and I ask you answer. We are having a conversation. So creating a trustworthy relationship, bringing empathy to the space. When you
Yeah.
asked me before techniques, there are no techniques, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
baseline, but the truth is one of the techniques could be have a conversation. Don't have an interview. Have a conversation based on your guideline, and the guideline is based on your objectives.
Which I
And
think,
that's kind
that,
of
yeah, I can see how it can be more difficult. Maybe what you easily do sitting at the table having dinner with new people that you're just getting to know, it becomes much harder when you feel the pressures that, for example, you had to, you've been doing a lot of work to organize this interview. They finally say yes, you arrive there, you have the camera rolling, maybe you had some technical problems there.
yeah, yeah,
Finally
I
you're
get it.
sitting there, you
Yeah.
feel all this pressure on you, and it's like, okay, now I cannot waste, this interview. I need to make sure that this is going to come out. And I would say I totally agree with you that in that moments, as a filmmaker, I think that you need to get rid of that. You need to just free, like that. And of course, it's an exercise. At least for me, I don't know about you, Laura, but for
Of
me, it's an
course.
exercise. It's something that you learn as you do it. It's not something that you're gonna do it right the first time. But I've seen that over time, if I am intentional about doing that, then it becomes easy to do it.
Yeah.
And right
Train as you go, like you will be better and better meantime you do that. But the truth is, when I say have a conversation, don't understand me wrong, you still have a certain structure, okay? Because
yes,
people also understand the setting they are in, there is a structure behind it. But when you have your camera rolling, when you have all that setting, people already feel nervous, they're already spaced out,
yeah,
especially in real life story documentary making. So you want to make them comfortable. At least you talking to them, it should be natural. It's not like, can you answer this? How, like, when you go by this script, people are like shaken. So the baseline, summarizing, not to repeat again, is creating a space based on trust, where people feel comfortable, where the setting is nice. And then the conversation should be really going as a storyline evolving by conversation, but keeping the guideline, the objective of the
yeah,
outcome, what you want to have as a red thread, So you have a red line, and then you can even have a small paper and have like just this reminder, oh, did she actually answer this? Or maybe I need to ask him this because I still didn't get the final
yeah.
line where I'm going to. And then another, maybe
Uh-huh.
going just summarizing,
Yeah, go ahead.
when people are telling their stories, for sure they tell so many interesting things. So you will be picking out of their questions and not just following what is being said before. And that will enrich your storytelling for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that
Yeah.
makes sense. The one thing is that based on that, on what you just said, usually what helps me, if I cannot always do that, of course. It
Yes.
depends on
Yeah.
the production, it depends on many things. But if I can, especially the production that, I raise the funds for, so I usually set up time before we film so that I can just spend time with the people I'm
Yes.
gonna be filming.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Because I've
Yes. Very
seen that
important.
even just spending like 2 hours without the camera, and usually I like to do it over a meal or over
Yes. Of
something where
course.
it's
You're Italian.
like yeah, of course, we're doing something, but we're not really doing something, right? We're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
working on a project. We have to eat, and so we are
Yeah. Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
sitting at the table
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
I've seen that. For
Awesome.
me, that is really really helpful because we're sitting
Beautiful.
there a couple of hours, we're having a meal, and I'm just getting to know you. I'm just, I shared a
Yes.
little bit about me, I shared a little bit about the fact
Yes.
that I'm tired because last night I didn't sleep, whatever it is that is
Beautiful.
happening in
Beautiful.
that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Beautiful
helps me.
and real.
That helps me a
Yeah.
lot because, I don't have to,
Absolutely.
like you
Yes.
said, it's not a technique. It's like,
Yeah.
if I want to love this person,
Yeah.
like, and I'm seriously interested in,
Yeah.
what they have to share,
Yeah.
it comes easy.
Yeah,
So,
making it more informal than all these formal procedures, because
uh,
situation itself, it will already bring certain constraints and pressure, so
yeah.
yeah.
And when it comes to question, Lara, I would like to know from you. Um, you told me a little bit about, but you give me the example of the restaurant, right? So you have your objective, and then
Hmm.
you come up with questions. Um, do you have you found like, that there are specific, or there's specific way of giving questions that somehow elicit more detailed answer?
Yes, there are many ways actually on the question marks, and I'm happy then to provide you after with some documents on this. But let me just give you practical examples.
Uh-huh.
So, a lot of times, like, what really works well, one thing is having this structure narrative on question, but the follow-up questions are meaning that you follow up on what people are actually sharing, and
Mm.
they are conducting them into your objective, so they feel that you're really listening to them. Because if
Mm.
you're just dissecting interview, they say something and you're like, aha, okay, thank you, let's go there. It's what we are doing right now. So you're listening to me and you even repeat my words and you say, when you were just saying around the
Mm. Mm.
food in the
Mm. Mm. Mm.
restaurants,
Mm. Mm.
you're making, okay, this guy really
It's
listens to me, so
listening.
let's
Yeah. Yeah.
continue conversation. So it's a follow-up question where you exemplify what people are saying, that feel the proximity and emotional, it opens emotional landscape that people even starts to open more. You follow up on them and you induce them in their own story based on your objective, so then you can direct exactly
Mm.
forward to the objective where you want to guide them. Then I call them silent questions. This
Ah.
seems weird, but it's truly a silent question where you share your story on perspective, on what you understand what this person said. It can be even your assumption, okay? Does No one
Okay.
says it's correct. But then you create space. You don't even need to say, you can say, is that what I understood correct? And they repeat. But when they repeat or reiterate their own story, they will go deeper, because they will already know that you understand. So they want to evolve on the story. But you make a kind of repetition. You're kind of mimicking the environment, you know?
You know that actually that I found out to be true, especially when. Okay, so we start with the basic that I already have the trust. I feel like I am close to this
Yeah.
person, and there
Yeah.
is that dynamic where we are like in tune. We're sitting in
Yes.
front of one another.
Yes.
We are enjoying this conversation. We're
Yes.
passionate about it, right? I am assuming all of that. So we're already
Yeah.
into that mood, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When we arrive there, if I sometimes I feel more comfortable to do it, sometimes less, but I use that to almost provoke the person,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
to see what's their reaction, not necessarily
Yes.
verbally, but even to see how emotionally they respond to that.
Yeah.
I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. Sometimes I've seen if the person, for example, is sharing something about how they don't really like, this group of people because, oh, you should have seen what they've done or this or that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually, if I studied a little bit before about the dynamics of the other group, then I go
Mm-hmm.
and I tease them and say, yeah, but they also done this is good, isn't it? So I almost poke them to their nerve to see their reaction. But granted that there is already that trust, that almost like they give me non-verbal permissions to go there. I have to
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable. I don't always do that. What do you think about that? Is that something that you usually do, or it's kind of like you kind of like go over? I'm pushing too much. What do you think? I'm curious to know what you
Yeah,
think
yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah. I'm laughing because it's testing the limits. No, I'm joking. Of course, I think everything that you feel, it's in terms of trustworthy space that person feel
Ah,
comfortable with. I think it's amazing. I think what you need to learn as in doing interviews, and if I may
yeah.
assume that as a great filmmaker, doing documentaries, you need to also be an observer. You cannot be just based on questions. And you are, I'm sure, like it's assumption. So you need to observe the mimics, expressions. How do people feel? What is the gesture of the hands? Are they closing themselves? Are they pulling back in their body? Are they open? They want to talk. It feels very different if I do this, or I'm like, maybe I want to disappear from the camera. So when you see that, you will also, in the basic narrative, it takes quite some, let's say, human knowledge. You call it before like psychology, behavioral, psychology, whatever you call it. For me, it's not even about names. What is relevant is experiential space of how people act, how the dynamic of the body interaction. Because when you're talking, you're not talking just verbally, you're talking non-verbally, you're talking with hands, you're talking expression, maybe even some people do sounds, they do some whatever tricks, and to feel more comfortable, cracking their fingers, or whatever. People have their own ways. So when you're looking into this dynamics, you will understand, is this person comfortable with my question? Am I actually bringing her closer, or I'm pulling her out? And these are all techniques. If you told them, if let's say in this podcast we call them techniques, we should be using them smartly, but also not overthinking. This is, like you said, it comes with the training. Once you do one naturally, just try once with your friend, having an interview, and see what happens.
No, and I like that you mentioned that, because I think this is my perspective as a filmmaker. Once I establish the trust, and I've been given permission to navigate a certain topic with this person, good storytelling comes with contrast, and so I need to create those that contrast during the interviews, right? Whether I have two opponents, whether I have, like, I need to, believe it or not, that thing is going to come out. I want it to come out, and I like to push to the limits. But then when I do that, I think that it's important to do what you're saying, to see how they react to that, let's say, poking, right? Because if I see that they start to retire a little bit, and they start to close themselves or whatever, then usually it means that somehow I need to take care of that, even during the interview. I cannot just let it go as it is, because first, I don't want to do it to the person in front of me. I don't want them to feel like they want to retire.
I don't think you do. Yeah, I think you're enough bright than we are. We, by default, as humans, we have social skills, soft like skills. We feel a part of thinking. So feeling situations, and also listening, the voice of tone. What is the vibration? Is it soft? Is it harsh? Like, I'm so sensitive in doing this that I understand if the person is angry, if the person is frustrated, if the person is just very sad, or if the person is just neutral, whatever, they can decide for me. I don't care. So you can read this. This is nonverbal communication. This is why interview, it has so many levels. This is why documenting things, it has beyond what the script says, and that's when you can go beyond. It's when you're breaking through the iceberg. And maybe I will just share a story, if you don't mind.
Please do.
The iceberg
go for
is that it comes to me a picture that probably in one of our sessions, maybe I used it, I don't know, it's quite some time ago. So normally, I'm not Portuguese, I live in Portugal. And people, for 13 years, I'm Croatian and Slovenian. And when I moved here, people will say, "Hi, hola Laura, tudo bem?" It's like, "Hi Laura, how are you?" And of course I would always answer like, "Yeah, okay." Or when I was not good, I would say, "Not so good." And people would like contract, and I was like, why then ask me if you don't want to know the answer? So first, reality shock, social cultural differences. And on the iceberg, what I want to share, but there are some questions that they are obvious and they are yes and no answers. The second part of the questions are under the iceberg, that you don't see them, what is happening under the sea surface, which are in your subconscious, which has to do with your norms, with your habits, with your social cultural determination,
Yeah.
like who you are, where you were born, religion, belief system,
Uh-huh.
emotional state. And all of these things you can only access if you really observe people. So these people who were asking me, they didn't know I'm not known how Portuguese people act. They just asked me that, like everyone speaks like this. It's a manner of speaking, not the real question. But for
You
me, it was offensive.
Well, you're saying
So
that they were they were not really asking the questions, but you were giving them the real answer. They did not
yeah,
expect for you to say
no,
not so well, right? Is that
yes,
what you're saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's a cultural aspect, you think?
Yeah, it's a cultural aspect. Yeah, it's for sure a cultural aspect that we experience in many countries. So
Got it.
it's yeah.
Got it.
But
So,
more than that, I was just wanting to name that one things are obvious thing that we all think it's the same. But
okay.
when you really understand what is not obvious, it's where the person is coming from. In my culture, if you ask me how am I doing, be sure you're ready for the answer, because I might have an hour of an answer, like Slavic, Croatian. I will tell you a story.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I didn't know that about your culture. I didn't know that.
okay. From in my yeah.
Um, I love this. I really like all the work covering. I think that this is really, really helpful, Laura. And I really like the way we went into, how do you approach the interview once you are in, how you have to proactive listen, how do you, you manage that, how do you try to,
Mm-hmm.
like what are the things that you can build on top of listening, right? You're listening, but then you can know how do you interact. And I love the fact that you mentioned that it has to be a conversation. Usually the more is a conversation, I would say once you are having a natural conversation, probably you're having a successful interview, granted that you're getting the informations that are going to be helpful then in the editing, and in your case they're going to be in line with your objective. One thing, Laura, that comes to my mind as we're talking, we talked about the whole interview. uh, what can you share about cultural sensitivity and difference? Like
Mm-hmm.
there are, maybe I don't know how to pose the questions, but I guess uh, cultural sensitivity plays a role, in conducting interview, and if yes, how do you manage that? The fact that you're going to interview somebody from, I don't know, from Middle East, or somebody, at least in our
Yeah.
case, we're European. I mean, there is already a difference between each country.
Yes.
But I mean, if we're talking about Italy, even north and south, there's a huge difference in the culture. How do you approach that? What are the things to keep in mind when you are
Mm-hmm.
interviewing somebody that comes from another culture?
Really important and baseline of any interview, it's to understand the social cultural differences that you might face between different people, if especially if you're doing the same interview for many different people.
Ah,
Of course, first thing of all, you want to understand and adjust the interview also objectives, maybe based on their social cultural background environment. So I will give you an example because yeah, it's very
yeah.
nice to talk, but
I
yeah,
was actually
yeah.
gonna ask you to do that. Yeah, please,
Yeah, yeah,
please.
yeah. I should think of all these examples before, but I'm now making them up or talking from
Ah,
experience.
that's
Like
okay.
one of them, I will speak on toilets again, but just because it's been 15 years of my research for different clients for my company and so on. And toilet paper. I will go directly to toilet paper because everyone can understand it. Whatever your topic of filmmaking is, but you will understand if I explain you in this example.
Yeah.
So my main one of my parts of research was the hygiene and understanding of the taboo on of the toilet.
Uh,
What is the taboo around the toilet? Why it's such a problem? And what is actually level of hygiene, and like how do we perceive hygiene? So when I traveled to India, and I was like talking, I would do interview and I was all smart, and even as an anthropologist, I would know so much on toilets and like these cultural differences. But then I was in a conference where suddenly there was no toilet paper, and I was like, okay, I must ask this. It was informal interviews questions. But I was like, I must inform myself on this toilet paper stuff because it was international conference. I know they have different habits. Mainly they were like Hinduists, but I was like, I need to investigate on this. And then one of the ladies would explain me, what do you think hygiene is toilet paper? Like, how can you think the hygiene is related to toilet paper, like in going to toilet? I was like, it's what we do in Europe. It's, of
Yeah.
course, after toilet,
Yeah.
you clean yourself, no, like, hello. And she was like, but when your hands are dirty, you don't kind of clean them, no? Like, you wash them. Like, you don't take a paper if you're like outside in the grass and mud, you don't just like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
clean
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And she was so right, and I was like, oh my god, we are so dirty. Dirty, excuse me. And I was like, yeah, that's the social baseline, the social cultural differences, that my interview and my perception on understanding hygiene changed so much, because I had this completely different perspective on, like, oh, okay, I assumed that hygienic it's to have toilet paper even in international conference
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Mumbai.
Yeah.
And I was aware to a certain extent that going to toilet there is different, but I the perception of hygiene just changed for me, for myself, and that was kind of a conduit for different kind of interviews making. So I don't know if the example is enough on
Yeah.
understanding.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think, like, do you, like, is there a way, for example, if you know that you're going to interview somebody from a different culture, like in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
case India, about this specific
Yeah.
topic,
Yeah.
are there things that before you go, you have to
Yeah.
keep in mind that you can apply to every culture, you think?
Um, I mean, exactly, like one of my mistakes, I was young, that's 15 years ago,
Yeah.
so I was like a young student. Of course, I would be prepared, and I would like do some basic overview on how hygiene is perceived in their social cultural environment. So I think having a basic understanding of how the reality works around certain subject would be important. What does it
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
war state for someone in Africa? What does it mean, war state for someone in Europe is very different, probably. What does it mean, hygiene in Europe or India is very different, Africa, and so on. So, like, just this concept, you can read, not maybe on a concept, but like, how does it look like? How does it look like? How the toilet looks like in India. I could check it before. Of course, I knew they used the bum gun for washing, but I didn't know they use bum gun without the toilet paper, because I was like,
Yes.
like I was like, you use water to clean yourself. I knew that before, but I didn't think that then you don't dry yourself. Kind of funny, but doesn't. Yeah,
No, no,
very
no, no.
intimate conversations here, but
No, no. Well, it
you're
is what it is.
getting
I
the
mean,
point.
it's like, yeah, I guess, that's the nature of, even, like, talking about being vulnerable or telling stories or all of
Yeah,
that. I think it's
exactly.
all part of that. I'm not,
Being an
embarrassed or
anthropologist and having
whatever.
give a shit, it's what it gives. Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
interesting. So yeah, no, because I think that what you're saying, I found that to be true. I was just curious to see if there was something else that you would do to approach. So
Oh,
you're like, like, if there was
yeah.
anything specific. But what you're saying is
Yeah.
exactly what, at least for me personally,
Yeah.
like, I try to
Yeah.
understand. But for example, when you mention war state zone, what does it mean for Africa? What does it mean for Europe? For me, I had a moment when you shared that, because I'm like, I guess when I did the documentary on the genocide, I did not explore that, for example. I didn't necessarily approach it that way. And maybe that would have been helpful, because at least just to get an answer on that question, I think it would have been helpful, even from the local people. When I will get there, and maybe I don't even remember. Maybe it came through at some point, right? But to prepare before, maybe it would have been more helpful. For what does it mean for them? Is that something
Yeah.
that they were familiar with, or not?
Yeah, I think like I'm thinking a bit further, like through my experiences, and also like intuitively assessing what we are talking. I would say one thing is you can prepare yourself by looking into some database around the topic you will be working on. Of course, you want to read. But then another thing is like look a bit also into history. One thing is like a social, cultural things, like what is happening in this moment.
Uh huh.
If you look a bit through the history, what
Uh
was
huh.
happening there, it's for sure giving you some additional hints on where this person is coming from, where parents of this person are coming from, where the ancestors were living. What, because this preconditions understandings of many things on how you live and how you experience of your life. Or asking this person preliminary questions, which can be just like having a questionnaire, you know, if you need to travel very remotely to set up the scenario. I don't know if you do interviews online, it's, but like having some preliminary questions that can give you some insights on who this person is would be important. And it can be a questionnaire to start off. I do this in my mentoring sessions and coaching, where I do preliminary questions. Of course, talking one-to-one is very different than typing. But then when people type, or when they answer, or if they don't
That's
have
true.
access to internet, is different. They express in their own way, and it's kind of, they tell you the story, they believe in the story in that moment, no, but reality can change afterwards. You talk to them. So for me, questionnaires I do with my clients are good to start off, because just they give me some framing where these people is. Like, I also like in questions, I like stories of I don't like to call it like a projection, so like projecting their own reality. So you will ask this person to imagine him, herself in certain position, in certain place. And even if it's a very out there thing, but you will, through explaining this distant situation, see how they perceive that reality, how they understand this situation from their own circumstances.
So you would ask
So
them to imagine themselves in a specific position and what they
yeah,
would do. You would ask them what they would do
yeah, or
or
like
how they would
how
act.
yeah, or like, for example, let me, yeah, again, try to simplify in examples. If I'm working, like what I use my interviews for, it's also to gain insights for solutions, okay,
Ah,
for creating solutions is mainly around environmental challenges.
yeah.
So I would say, let's imagine that you have a superpower, and you can
Ah,
solve the
yeah.
challenge that we are facing, like you were studying, like working on genocide, or I would work like on this water crisis. I will give to their hands a magic tool and say, so from anything that you have in this moment, like, and no limitations, what you will be doing with this situation, how you will be reacting towards it, what would be your proposal to the world to change this, what should we be absolutely taking care of, you know? And
Ah,
then, even if it's not their story, because we are
yeah,
speaking
it's
on the
true.
storytelling, it's a projection of reality, which gives you kind of vision of how they think, how they understand the reality. Are they pessimistic? Are they optimistic? Are they
Hmm.
futuristic? Are they, you know, working through their shadow?
Yeah,
Are they,
no,
yeah,
no, Laura. Now you reminded me of this exercise that we did together, and I remember
yeah,
how much that was helpful. How that exercise,
yeah,
because you don't look necessarily at what they're saying, but you are looking at what it is, the word that they create, and how they will solve that. That tells you something about them and how they think and how they
exactly,
approach life, where they are in life, or all of
exactly.
that. It's a great insight. I think that you could make so many documents just using that technique, personally. Like,
Okay, awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I think on the question marks, we can evolve a lot more on question marks. It's really like scenario creations, like I said, follow up questions, immersive questions, where you put them in scenarios and you say,
Hmm.
imagine yourself being in this time and space right now, surrounded by this and this situation. And you give them a prompt to talk about. How would you act, or how would you feel? And
Oh,
what
that's
this
great.
tells you, you
That's
know,
great.
and then it's opening complete a new venue of conversation, because they always, even if you don't tell a story, you come from your own experience. You
Yes.
come from your
Yeah,
belief
yeah, yeah, yeah.
system, you
Totally,
know.
totally,
So
totally.
it's I hope this is kind of useful. It's a
Oh, it's great.
non-structured, yeah.
No, you gotta be kidding me. Like all these things, I
Yeah,
think, for me personally, this is a very good refreshment of the
yeah,
work that
yeah,
we've done together. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
think, and that's why I wanted to record the
yeah,
episode with you. I believe that the filmmakers that are listening to this, they're gonna get a lot out of it, because when I applied all these principles to my
yeah.
work, I realized
Mm-hmm.
how much it was needed. I don't even know honestly why, or maybe there is, there are people that are clearly doing this work with anthropologists, but I worked with psychologists in the past over interviewing people, especially people that suffer from war or difficult situation. But not anthropologists. And when I work with you, I realized that there was so much to it, and here we are. If right now there's a documentary filmmaker listening to you, what will be, your advice, if you had only 1 or 2 minutes?
Listen more than talk. First rule. When you're writing your interviews down, yes, you can have 20 questions, but your role there will be to listen, not to talk and question all that questions. So listen deeply what a person is saying, follow up on what he's saying, and conduct your interview based on your objectives. So set clear goals and objectives where you want to be going to handle the interview based on that. So goal and objective is your red line. When I say goal and objective, just that we understand each other, it's to have what do you want to have as an outcome from your interview? Keep with that in your mind. Oh, I want to have answer on this specific food supply. Okay, then the question will be leading you there. Prepare the space. Should clearly choose location for filming and prepare, which is supporting the interviewer, yourself, but mainly the informant, the person that she feels comfortable, feels really at ease talking to you. Prepare the space, the setting. Don't put like this all lights into person that he's so invaded that, of course, you're a filmmaker, so I won't say that things. I can just tell you about how persons should feel to create trust-based relationship. Should feel comfortable. So being comfortable, if you need to bring flower, whatever you need to do to open the space, to stand at the place, whatever, create the space that it's comfortable. Circumstances, prepare and study a bit around the who is this person, what is the background, and not just about the person, about the topic that you're researching. Educate yourself a bit, because more knowledgeable you are, it's not just that more questions you will have, more truthful listening you can have, and from there you can extract the gold, and you can really ask the right questions, because you will know something what is already the baseline that everyone understands, and something that is a unique advantage of this person sitting in front of you. What is the goal that he what is she bringing to you? What is this person having for you? And then be aware, a part of verbal communication, objective setting, space and location, be also aware of the nonverbal communication. Tone of the voice, expression, mimics, how the people are acting. All these things will give you the right space from you to conduct the interview and to go deeper and really establish a relationship, which is a trust-based relationship and which can grow further on.
It seems like, it's a lot when you're sitting on the chair and you're about to keep all these things in mind. I would just say all these things comes with time. You're not going to do it right the first time. You're going to miss one. Maybe you're going to remember three. You're going to miss two. But I would say the goal should be that you keep those things present in your mind as you approach. And then with time and experience and all of that, these things are going to come. The more you do it, the more...
they become natural. And you know why they become natural? Because they are natural.
Exactly.
All the rest is unnatural.
It's true. No. I think
it's
that
unlearning.
It's true, Laura, because I think that we're going to the very basic of just having a good conversation where you are genuinely interested into something. Right?
Exactly.
If that dynamic is not there, you can study and come up with all techniques or with all strategies that you want. It's not going to work.
Exactly.
So guys, if you are filmmakers, well, you better be interested in, whoever is talking to you, because otherwise it's not going to work. They might be, really motivated. You might be using all the techniques, but if you're not interested, then it's not going to work.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And Yeah, really great pleasure of being with you, and also to remember that really, as an anthropologist, we have a lot to share with filmmakers, what I did not know either before working with you. So there is for sure a landscape because we all tackle
Yeah.
and study humans and behaviors and relationships, and so it's beautiful.
Yeah. Laura, thank you so much. This has been like really, it's been a bliss. I'm not just saying it because I have to say it. This has been really, really,
Likewise,
yeah, really,
I
really good.
yeah,
I think that all this information are going to help whoever is going to listen. And yeah, I hope that in the future, maybe there are going to be, we'll see what happens when we release it online. If there is going to be something, that the community will want to know more about it, maybe we can do a second episode on something more specific and, like,
brilliant,
let's see what happens.
perfect.
Laura, thank you
Here
so
to help.
much.
Thank you too. Awesome. Super.
Laura's insights have been always helpful in my career, and that's why I wanted to have her on the podcast. There is one question Laura didn't answer in this episode. How do you handle interviews with subjects that have hard time to open up? Now, to find the answer to this specific question, go on howwefilm.com, access the exclusive content. It's free, you just need to sign up, and I hope you enjoy.